In this lesson, we're going to be looking at drum notation. So we've looked at quarter notes and eighth notes, but remember when we're playing beats on a drum kit, we're going to be playing different drums at different times. Now, in general, when we're playing beats, we're going to be using 3 of the instruments within the entire drum kit. We're going to be using the bass drum, the snare drum, and the hi-hats. Okay, so those 3 instruments we're going to have to represent in visually in traditional musical notation. So let me just show you over here. We're going to have 3 different lines. We've got the top line right here, and followed by a middle line and a bottom line. This is going to make sense in just one second. So say, for instance, I want to write down a beat. So here is our beginning of our beat. Now say I want to write down 8th notes on the hi-hat. So I want the hi-hat to play 8th notes continuously throughout the bar. I'd write up here, these X's, they represent the hi-hats. And then I can finish off the bar like this. So like I said, the X's are the hi-hats. Now, this line right here is the snare drum, and this line right here is the bass drum. Now, you might be wondering why I wrote the top line in orange and the middle and bottom line the same color instead of having 3 different colors altogether. The reason I did this is because, remember I said a bar always has to add up to 1. So say, for instance, we're going to play quarter notes. We have to have 4 quarter notes to logically fill up the bar, right? Now, with the drum notation, basically, we have the hi-hat line, which is this orange line right here. This has to equal 1. So, right? So we have 8 notes there. Now, the thing is, if we were to do it as we did before, there's no room left for anything else. So nothing could go on the bass drum or the snare drum because the 8 hi-hat notes, the 8th notes on the hi-hat, they all add up to 1. So there's no space left, right? So what we're going to be doing from here on outward is when we're writing down beats, the hi-hat line, which is the orange line, has to equal 1. And both the snare and the bass drum line also have to equal 1. So say, for instance, I wanted to write down the bass drum on the 1 and the 3 and the snare drum on the 2 and the 4, right? Let me just write down like this. So if I wanted the bass drum on the 1 and the 3, I would have the bass drum here and the snare drum, the second bass drum there. And say the snare drum was on the 2 and the 4, I'd write it here and here. So like I said, both green lines add up to 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter notes. So we're all good. So up here, this equals 1, and then this equals 1. And just to go back to when we started off with quarter notes, remember we had the upward staff and the downward staff. This is the reason why we have upward staffs and downward staffs. You see right here we have upward staffs on the 8th notes, and we have downward staffs on the bass and the snare, because if I had upward staffs on all of these notes on the bass and the snare, it would look very messy visually, right? It would look like this. Let me just draw it out for you quickly. As you can see, that's a little more messy than this way. This is visually more pleasing, so to speak. So that's basically drum notation in a nutshell.